I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Trish.
Mrs. Brew?
Here.
Mr. Kramer?
Here.
Mr. Menegini?
Here.
Mr. Oja?
Here.
Mr. Pop?
Here.
We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or anything?
Nothing well, the only thing is that talked with Rick this afternoon, and we have 3 weeks between now and our next meeting, and we had 1 month approved on the backhoe, and we're not sure that, it's going to go over the month before our next meeting if we had to rent it for another month. So I don't know if you want to
Add that?
add that, just for sake of discussion.
Okay. So on 12, add approval.
So it'd be that, for the water department, for the backhoe rental.
To rent backhoe for another month?
Yeah.
So I need a motion first to amend the agenda.
I'll make a motion, we amend the agenda to include the backhoe for the water department.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. Do I still have to get approval of the agenda then?
Yeah.
Yes. All right, now I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented with the addition.
I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
We'll move on to the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of April 2nd, 2018. Is there any questions on the minutes? If not, I would need a motion.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of April 2nd, 2018.
Support.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
We'll move on to the approval of the Manifest 2018-08. Scott, do you have any questions on the Manifest?
I've got one. I'm looking at the very first page. We got Jim Leisner, supplies office for signs.
Yeah.
Did he go anywhere else to look for signs? I mean,
We checked them out on the internet. He did an
20
evaluation.
20 signs for $825 kind of seems pretty pricey.
Well, he checked it all out. That was the
Because I
best
know,
price.
looking at, just our basic signs that are laminated for council or whatever, for voting for council, I had 20, and it was less than $200 up in Iron Mountain. And that was laminated with a lot of things on there. So I just wanted to make sure that he did check other places on that.
Yeah, I don't think he called like businesses. I think what he did was he checked out on the internet for like where he knew where some of the real estate agents would get their real estate signs.
Okay.
That's where.
All I ask is next time if he could check into something like that.
We'll do that.
That's all.
Brett?
No.
Lee?
I'm sure this is a yearly thing, but I don't remember it. In every department, they've got Dickinson County Health Employee Hearing Exams. Is that a yearly thing then, Ray? Because I see it's broke down for every department. There's 5 and 6 and 2 and 3.
97 each.
I'm not sure, Trish, do you know if that was going to be an annual? We haven't done it in a number of years.
We're going to start doing it annually.
Is that some kind of rule and regs, or just
It's recommended by the safety
recommended by the safety? Oh,
coordinator.
okay. The only other thing I have here, I have a comment on the purchase power for March. It was only $18,000. That's very low, which is very good. That's all I have.
And didn't we have also the sale of 14,000?
Yeah, that's up above
The
that.
power we sold back to them was
Yeah.
14,000.
Okay, so do you subtract that from the 18,000 then? You do,
Yeah.
so it was even less than that.
Yeah.
Okay. Jeremy?
No, no questions.
Okay. I had a question on, starting with page 3 of 8, if you go under Norway Fire Department, maintenance equipment, Volpol Incorporated, and this is gas for degreasers, 6433. And then I also see the same thing for, the electric department, for the same amount of 6433. And then I also see the same amount for, wastewater fund. What is that for?
I'll have to check. Not sure.
And that's all the questions I have. Do I have a motion on the approval of the manifest?
I'll make a motion, we approve manifest 2018-08 in the amount of $359,606.38.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Did you want to, at this time, address the questions from the meeting before?
We had no outstanding questions from the meeting before.
Okay. All right, anyone wishing to address the council on agenda items shall do so now at the podium. State your name, address for the record. Comments shall be limited to 5 minutes. If not, later on, we'll have public comments towards the end of the meeting. Okay, we'll move on to Resolution 2018-06. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you. This particular item was put forward this past week by Assessor Wiseman. He received some correspondence from the state regarding a property transfer affidavit, which is usually filed, I believe, on property transfers. And what happens, must be some issue downstate, because there's actually a fine that should be collected if that affidavit is not filed on a timely basis. We checked our file, and we do have some, but it's one of those where I think Jim has gone on and contacted the individuals. The problem we have is that there's no legal recourse for collecting the fine. We could add the fine, and we could actually place it on the tax roll, but we can't actually place it as a lien on the taxes. So there's really no efficient way of collecting. So as we checked around, actually what the state has come up with is that if we're not going to apply the fine, then we need to apply an affidavit of waiver on the fine. And they're finding that the communities aren't trying to assess the fine, but they're also not doing the affidavit. So the state really just said, either you assess the fine or do the affidavit. So it's our recommendation that we do the affidavit, because the amount the amount of fines that we have or potentially could have is not a large amount, and it's something that we can handle administratively, and there's really, like I said, there's no legal recourse for us to even collect on it. So we're recommending to pass a resolution for the affidavit, for the waiver.
Any questions on that? If not, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion, Resolution 2018-06, property transfer affidavit fine waiver be approved.
Support.
Roll call, Trish?
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to approval of special events.
Okay, we have a special event application from the Dickinson Iron District Health Department. This has been an annual event for Breastfeeding Awareness Week. There's a walk at Strawberry Lake, and so we have a application, special events application for August 4th.
I see they had been doing this for, what, 3 years now?
Yeah.
And we have approved it every year.
Yes, that's true.
If there's no questions, I would need a motion on this event.
I'll make a motion that special events application from the Dickinson Iron District Health Department be approved.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. We'll move on to the approval USDA RDWWTP project pay request.
The standard pay request for the wastewater treatment plant, pay request is for $77,802.69.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the USDA-RDWWTP project pay request in the amount of $77,802.69.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Move on to the approval USDA RD water project pay request.
Okay, this is the pay request for the truck that was recently approved for $30,556 out of the water project.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve the USDA RD water project pay request, the amount of $30,556.
Support.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
No.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Move on to the approval of Oakcrest Property Surveying Service. Mr. Anderson?
Okay, at the last meeting, we mentioned that we were looking at reconfiguring the properties out off of Oakcrest Drive from our 5-acre original plan down to the 2.5-acre. And request was made to, how much would be extra surveying. That amount was provided for $4,500.
If there's no questions on this, do I have a motion?
The last time there was, I believe there was a concern about, with the horses, you had to have 5 acres. Doesn't really make any difference to me, but maybe just to think about it, where they could leave a couple of them lots at 5 and split up the rest of them.
That would be, I would recommend that if you're wanting to encourage the horses, that should probably be sent to the Planning Commission. The particular development, when we talked about it, probably, it's probably not something that we've talked about as wanting to encourage, because that does become sometimes an issue, but that's up to you guys.
I just thought I'd mention it, that's all.
Yeah.
What about the gas line that's in there, Ray? Are we gonna have any problems with putting a road in there in the future?
The gas line's on the opposite side of the...
There's nothing going across properties or anything like that?
No utilities there right now. We are planning to have the electric, and we're also, remember at the council meeting, somebody came up and talked about the cable, and we're currently trying to see what the pricing is and see what the interest is out on Oakcrest Drive again. We've had that numerous times. But now with us being part of the property owners, that it might be a little different on the breakdown. So we'll have to see what the cost is. So, but there will be no water and sewer at this point.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that PM surveying be approved for an additional $4,500, not to exceed 12,500 total to perform the surveying of the city's Oakcrest Drive properties.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Move on to 12, the approval to rent the backhoe for an additional month.
Okay, this is a request actually that's coming out of a mechanic shop for us to at least, we're looking at difference between fixing our current backhoe as well as, possibly renting for an additional month. I don't know how long it's going to take. He didn't say how long it would take to actually, we moved ahead and had the backhoe repaired right off the bat, how long that will take. But we're thinking that we'll probably need the next couple weeks, be able to at least move forward with the next month. From our initial investigation, it looks like we need a new rear end on that backhoe, so that the gears, everything is just shot. So we're looking at possibly upwards of, what was it, $15,000, Mary? I think was the number? Yeah, for the repair. And I think that through the budget hearings too, we're gonna have to talk about long-term. I know Rick is a little nervous. He said it's already I think that'll be the third time we've done it. I think we've done it twice before. So they do have a request to consider how we would consider upgrading that piece of equipment. The problem is that by the time we get through budget hearings, we'll be past our 1 month. So we're requesting the option of being able to go out an additional month to get us through the budget hearing.
Do we know approximately what it'll cost to replace it if we were to buy a new one?
Brand new one is, I think, $165,000. The type of unit that we're actually leasing is like a 3-year-old unit, and I think the cost for a 3-year-old unit is right just north of $100,000 with the trade. So
What year is that backhoe, do you know?
the one we currently own, 1998. And the one we're leasing is a 2015.
Anybody else have any questions? If not, we need a motion.
Make a motion to approve the backhoe rental for another month
That would be $3,000.
of $3,000.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
At this time, anyone wishing to address the council on any item of interest shall do so at the podium. State your name, address for the record, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes per person. We don't have anybody. Okay, we'll move on to mayor and council comments. Scott?
I have nothing for tonight.
Are we gonna schedule our budget hearing schedule now, or is that gonna be sent out, or?
We're gonna do that tonight, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna do that tonight.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yep.
Okay. Lee?
Yeah, just one comment here. Big congratulations to the city's biggest employer, Loadmaster. They secured their patent on their automated cart arm technology, and that should be a real big boost for them.
Good.
That's all I have.
I just wanted to commend all the crews and the trend that we've had out there with the snow removal and everything we've had to deal with. The fact that they're keeping everything open, they're doing a good job with it. Just wanted to thank and commend the crews.
Argon pump, is it all done today?
It was supposed to be done today. I didn't hear confirmation, but I think they were complete on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe doing some additional troubleshooting today.
Okay, so not up and running yet, you don't think?
It should be real close. I didn't get a chance to.
Okay.
The guys are out blowing snow, so didn't see too many of them around.
Okay. And I'd also like to thank the crew for keeping the roads clear and safe as possible, especially with the amount of snow that we've got. All right. Any questions?
Actually,
Comments?
very briefly, since we're doing thank yous tonight, but I was looking through the executive memo I missed last meeting. I was out of town with family, and I wanted to thank Councilman Pop for suggesting and or requesting that a safety committee be formed to work with the schools. I think that was done in a meeting that the video didn't air, and I thought it was important for people to know that, and thank Scott for putting that forward, and City Manager Anderson for coordinating that, and the school for setting that up. I think it's extremely important, and important for the community to have the city and the school working together closely to address and make sure that our kids are always at the forefront of our safety concerns. So thank you.
Mr. Anderson?
I don't have any additional comments.
Trish? Mary? No? Then I would need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Are we gonna do that right? Before